Oh hey, it's me, Will Webb, from Indietrix Film Reviews, the channel you're watching right now. Welcome to Indietrix Update, a semi-regular, which is not a very accurate description, a irregular video series where I explain what I've been up to behind the scenes on the channel and what's going on with all the other movies I've watched that I haven't reviewed. The short film I've been working on for a while, Dolstonian, is now kind of in contention for film festivals, so there's not much news yet on that, but we're entering into this cute and relatively weird period in a film's kind of life cycle where you know it's done, you know it's good, but you don't know where it's going to play or if other people are going to like it. So excuse me while I just float in a hinterland for the next couple of months.
Welcome to my ASMR channel. This is now a fidget spinner and ASMR only channel.
The other thing that you might see coming up over the next couple of months is I've been experimenting with like more creative ways I can deliver videos, like list-based stuff basically, but in a way that's both easier for me and more creative, and also not like just like another what culture type video, you know? As much as I like those list type videos, I'm a huge watcher of Outside Xbox. I don't really feel like I'm the right creator to be making that stuff on the regular, so I'm just working out like a different format for that at the moment. So keep your eyes peeled for some more weird stuff. Now the bit that you might be interested in, here's my list of films that I've seen that aren't films I've reviewed for the channel. And again, this is an incomplete list, but it's some of the more interesting stuff. In the past, these videos have been quite long because it takes forever to talk about films in any sort of depth if you have like 30 or 40 films to get through in a list. So what I've decided to do is like a game where we basically imagine a world where there aren't middle grounds for movies. Every movie that comes out is either good or bad. This is a joke, mostly. There are, of course, middle grounds for films, but it's an interesting creative exercise because it basically makes you ask yourself, what's literally worth sitting down and watching? Like, which hill will I die on? If I'm going to say this film is good, I promise you, this is worth seeing. The Brothers Grimsby, also known as Grimsby in other places outside of the UK. This is obviously just like complete trash. It's a massive misstep from Sacha Baron Cohen, whose taste I think has gone off the boil since the noughties. The Dictator was not a great film by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still more passable than this one. I'm a bit more disappointed in people like Penelope Cruz, who was in this for some reason, and even like Louis Leterrier, who's the director, who did like Now You See Me. He is quite a capable action director, not a great by any means, but quite capable. So this is a deliberate like step down for him, and I don't know why any of the people involved did this or why they thought it would work. This is mostly notable for a scene in which Mark Strong, who is a phenomenal actor, who again is slumming it here for reasons I completely don't understand, hides inside an elephant uterus, and then another elephant tries to have sex with the elephant that he's hiding in, and he has to stimulate it until it ejaculates all over him. And that's something that you can see in this film. Mark Strong playing with an elephant dick. Legends of the Fall. This is a really diverse list, isn't it? Legends of the Fall, set in America, turn of the 19th century. Really beautiful production design and cinematography, kind of mawkish, slightly boring. Good film. The Cloverfield Paradox. Was thinking about doing a video about this, but it's so bad and it's been covered by so many people I just don't think it's worth the time. Starts off with like the most unbelievably generic exposition-based scene that is just so boring. You can tell none of the actors and the director do not want to make that. They don't want to be part of that film at that point. You've got Chris O'Dowd, you've got Daniel Bruhl, great actors who are just completely thrown away by this movie. Bad movie. Bad movie. Zoolander 2, like a lot of sequels, fails to motivate its characters properly, comes off as a little mean-spirited in regards to its own legacy and the characters in the previous film, and also just feels out of date. Why remake that film, which was so tied to a particular moment in history and fashion? Phantom Thread. Wonderful performances, beautiful cinematography, really clever screenplay and direction. If you haven't seen it already, I highly suggest stop watching this video, go out and buy it or watch it or whatever, and come back to me when you've seen it, because it's phenomenal and you should definitely see it. So that's one for the good list, is what I'm saying. Black Panther, a pretty generic blockbuster that succeeds all of what's supposed to be in that genre and also adds a really interesting art direction and philosophy behind the film that hasn't really been seen in American mainstream action cinema before. I quite like this film, it's a good film, but if you really like it, I highly suggest seeking out some of the stuff that influenced it, most notably Afrofuturist films like the movies by Sun Ra. Personal Shopper, where the previous film from the director Olivier Assayas, which is called Clouds of Sils Maria, it has Juliette Binoche. I don't know whether it's pronounced like brioche or not, you know? Whereas Clouds of Sils Maria kind of wandered along for a lot of its runtime, and Kristen Stewart's excellent performance was a strong point that was mired in what was kind of a sea of cameos. Personal Shopper uses its genre trappings to propel a story that's intensely personal and very small. I like the way it uses ghosts not just to justify itself as a genre film, but also as a kind of metaphor for a failure to move on. And in particular, its focus on this young millennial nomad woman, really, who is chained to Paris by a past you can't change, who Skypes friends in Oman and makes day trips to London for the rich woman that's basically exploiting her labour. I think that's a really powerful story that's very modern and very well told. One of Us, a documentary about Hasidic Jews leaving their faith in New York, is a really powerful and very well told story, beautiful cinematography. I highly recommend sitting down to watch that. Sense and Sensibility, excellent screenplay adaptation of an excellent book. It's really well observed by the director, Ang Lee, the one who made the Hulk film that no one likes, not the Hulk film that only some people like. Beautiful performances throughout, especially by the late Alan Rickman, and of course Emma Thompson, who is always worth the time that she takes on screen. Jupiter Ascending was kind of a trashy movie. It wasn't really very good, and a lot of the things that I liked about it, like its art direction and its crazy good concepts and the way that it explores itself visually, were kind of mired in a lack really of motivating or interesting performances, and also in ultimately a failure to really make good on its promise. Age of Adeline is a turgid film, not a phrase I use very often. It's a drama with a sci-fi twist that doesn't really manage to do either of those things well. Compare and contrast it with Personal Shopper, which also tells a story about loneliness, but is done in a much more personal way and also uses its genre trappings in a more interesting way too. Deliver Us from Evil, another satanic horror. I don't know why in these movies, like, windows always have to explode out and stuff. When it says based on a true story, I'm just thinking, how can it possibly be based on a true story if with a load of CCTV, a demon came and like possessed a dude and then blew out a load of windows? It seems to me that it's based on a true story in the same way that the memoirs of the guy who is the lead character in it are based on his actual policing career, which is to say there's very little relationship between the two. Lord of Illusion. This is a Clive Barker film that doesn't have any silly voices in it. Don't know why I did one. Clive Barker is an okay writer. I think he's got some interesting stories. I don't think he's a good director, and he doesn't do a good job here. This film is all over the place. And apart from having a few cool images in it, it's ultimately not worth the time you spend watching it. Date Night was a pleasant surprise for me. I think Tina Fey and Steve Carell are good actors who are frequently misused, but I think they do really well here and they're well matched to the roles that they're in. The film itself is light. It doesn't fall into the trap of most action comedies by being either more of an action or more of a comedy. It manages to balance both quite well, and overall I enjoyed watching the film. I thought it was a good date movie, ultimately. Legend of Tarzan, the Disney film that came out a couple of years ago that I promptly forgot about entirely. It's kind of in a weird place between their underperforming male lead, big tentpole movies that don't really do very well, and their really well performing live action remakes of their own animated canon. It doesn't really work that well because it tries to tell its story in flashbacks like it's some sort of crazy mystery, when of course everyone knows the rough story of Tarzan. The Man from U.N.C.L.E., directed by Guy Ritchie, who is a really hit and miss director, to be honest, is a really good example of how you can adapt a TV show to a movie. You give it as much time as possible between the TV show coming out and the movie coming out, and then you really don't have any respect for the TV show except for its style and its feeling. So what Ritchie does is he keeps hold of that style, adds a bit of his own irreverence to it, and then amps up the production values while basically ignoring the general plot of the TV show. It's led by three charismatic performances. You have Henry Cavill, who's so much fun when you let him off the leash, Alicia Vikander, whose comedy sense I hadn't really seen before and I think she's very good, and Armie Hammer, who is, well, you know, he's gold. 13th, Ava DuVernay's documentary about how mass incarceration has basically disproportionately damaged black communities in America, and makes some claims about that being essentially on purpose. That's like a deliberate way of enforcing basically new Jim Crow laws. Draw your own conclusions about that. I think the people in the film make very good cases for us seeing mass incarceration in the States in that way, and certainly I think it's a really well-made documentary in its own right as well. Day of the Jackal, a classic action film kind of before action films were action films. I think we live in a sort of post-Die Hard action film world, and it's easy to forget that before that action films were basically thrillers that had like car chases in them. It has this ruthlessly documentarian way of approaching its subject matter that it really benefits from, because you feel like you're watching actual events unfold. Documenteur is a film by Agnes Varda, who is once again back in the popular conversation because of her film Faces Places, which is coming out soon and was an Oscar nominee last year. Varda's movies are often slow, they can be very interior and confrontational, they can also be quite joyful. This film is more on the interior confrontational side, and to be honest I didn't really enjoy watching it that much, certainly not as much as some of her other films like Cleo 5 to 7. Nevertheless, good film, well made, well thought through. The Night I Swam, a very slow and small and sweet and quiet, almost completely dialogue-free film about a little Japanese boy who decides not to go to school one day, instead walks through the snow to the town where his dad works in like a fishing plant, I was going to say, a fish packing plant. Beautiful, just really well thought through. Hanna, Joe Wright as an intellectual approaches the action film, like for fun, I guess. It's often not as fun as it should be. It does have some really good elements to it. It's led by these excellent performances from everyone in the cast. And it has a really nice sense of place that we see over and over again throughout it. We have these really rich landscapes and good art direction. Unfortunately, the film does take itself a bit seriously, and it's often quite mannered in a way that Wright approaches the directing, more so than his films before that, and less so, I think, than The Darkest Hour. So, Chalet Girl. Well, not really going to defend this one. Wild Child. I'm aware I'm not really a target audience for this film, but I'm not going to put it on the good list. Summer 93 is this gorgeous, beautifully told little film about a little girl whose mum has died and she has to move away from Barcelona to rural Spain to live with her aunt and uncle. It's so lush in the way that it approaches its summer Spain setting. It's so careful in terms of how it treats its main cast, who are little children. And it's so wonderfully cast and beautifully told and put together by the director, for whom this is a semi-autobiographical story. Definitely worth a watch when it comes out in the UK, which is very soon. Come Sunday, a new Netflix drama about a preacher in the US who loses his faith, basically, or more accurately, loses the particular faith he's practicing at the time. The film has a wonderful cast and I think an earnest direction. It deals with religion in a really honest way that I don't think will annoy believers, but at the same time definitely doesn't evangelize Christianity in any way. Ultimately, I think the film is more interested in its subject matter than it is interesting in the way that it deals with its subject matter, which is a real shame. Fanny and Alexander is a luscious experience. It's like 3 hours long. I think it's 5 hours long in its TV cut, the original cut of it. It's so sumptuous and clever and has such an epic scope that deals with small things like humans and our families. I don't really have much more to say about it. It's one of the classics of cinema. You should really give it a watch. I held off watching it for years and I have no idea why. It was amazing. San Andreas. I found this film completely perplexing. It opens with a series of sight gags around a young female driver almost crashing her car while doing really dangerous shit while she's driving, and then she accidentally, through no fault of her own, crashes off the side of a cliff, and Dwayne Johnson has to fly in and rescue her while him and his mates do exposition speak to each other. It's really bizarre and it never stops being bizarre. Paul Blart Mall Cop is literally devoid of good jokes. I think that's an absolute crime for a comedy film. I don't understand how that film can exist. I watched the whole film and I didn't laugh a single time. Oh my god, who makes these films, and more importantly, who goes to see them? I literally think its only use would be a diversion for children while they engage in other activities. I don't think it'd even hold their interest for that long. Assassin's Creed has this beautiful cinematography and a really good cast, and it just doesn't work as a movie. It doesn't hang together. The Adjustment Bureau is this kind of odd genre film that has a semi-metaphysical leaning while also ostensibly being kind of science fiction-y in the way that it feels. It goes all over the place in repeating its plot over and over again, but the essential ideas behind it are quite fun. It never really takes off and flies like it should, but it's certainly a good punt at what it does. That said, I probably wouldn't take time out of my day to watch it again. Can we just get a shout out for all those brave writers, directors and producers during the late noughties / early new tens who were trying to make normal generic action movie adaptations of the extremely weird and boutique and bizarre stories of Philip K. Dick? What made them think that Philip K. Dick was the guy to be adapting? So there's a selection of the films I watched. If you've got any differing opinions, please let me know in the comments down below. I love to hear from you. That's it from me. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.